The alien queen forced a human union on her daughter. Now she. The alien princess stood silently on the balcony, her long fingers gripping the cool, transparent railing. Below her stretched the vast city of glass and metal, shimmering in the pale light of the distant star around which the massive space station orbited. The city hummed with activity, vehicles gliding along invisible tracks, citizens moving in precise patterns, their faces a mixture of curiosity and routine. She had watched it countless times, yet today it seemed different. There was a tension in the air, an undercurrent she could not ignore. Her mother, the alien queen, ruled the city with a mind as sharp and calculating as the tallest spire in the capital. She had planned everything with care: trade routes, diplomatic alliances, even the smallest details of the upcoming union with a human envoy. It was a move meant to strengthen the fragile peace between their civilizations. The princess understood the logic, yet she felt a quiet rebellion stirring within her. The union was not her choice. It was a duty imposed upon her before she had a chance to understand what she wanted. The princess turned from the balcony and walked through the halls of the palace. The walls were lined with glowing panels that displayed maps of distant stars, flowing charts of resources, and records of alien achievements. Every detail spoke of order, of control, of a civilization that valued structure above all else. She paused at a panel showing the human envoy's starship approaching. She had seen images and reports of him, but she had never met him. He was a human from a world so different from her own, yet one that her mother believed could serve as a bridge between two civilizations. The thought made her chest tighten. She had read about humans, resilient, clever, unpredictable. Qualities that both fascinated and unsettled her. As she walked, the princess noticed a small group of attendants carrying baskets filled with delicate fruits, gifts from neighboring systems. The colors and scents were mesmerizing, but she barely glanced at them. Her mind was elsewhere, on the union, on the envoy, and on the quiet, stubborn feeling that perhaps her life could be more than a series of orders and ceremonies. She wanted to see the human not as a political tool, but as a person. The idea alone made her smile faintly. The palace itself was a maze of corridors, each more opulent than the last. Statues of past rulers stood in silent watch, their features sharp and commanding. The princess moved past them, her feet light on the polished floors. She entered the library, a space filled with ancient texts and holographic records. It was her favorite place. Here, she could explore ideas that had no place in the rigid hierarchy of the court. Today, she searched for anything about humans, anything that might give her insight into what awaited her. She found records of past encounters between humans and aliens. Stories of humans assisting in disasters, of humans solving problems that even the most advanced alien technology could not. She read about their creativity, their stubbornness, and their empathy. Each story added a layer to her understanding. She began to see the Union not as a trap, but as a possibility. Perhaps the human envoy could be more than a symbol of political strategy. Perhaps he could be a partner, someone with whom she could share ideas, dreams, even laughter. Her thoughts were interrupted by a subtle vibration beneath her feet. The palace hummed faintly, a reminder that the station itself was alive, a living machine orbiting a distant sun. She frowned. The vibration was unusual, not part of the normal operations. She accessed the palace monitoring systems and saw flickers of energy across the city below. Small anomalies, but enough to cause concern. It was nothing catastrophic, yet the irregularity suggested someone or something was testing the defenses. She frowned, the sense of unease deepening. It could be unrelated to her personal concerns, yet her instincts told her otherwise. The princess spent the rest of the morning observing the city, watching the citizens move about their routines. She noticed subtle changes, small disruptions that most would ignore. A merchant stall had been moved, a vehicle took an unusual route, a security drone paused longer than usual. Patterns that might seem insignificant to others felt like pieces of a puzzle to her. Her mind raced with possibilities, each more intriguing than the last. Was it a test, a message, or simply coincidence? She could not be sure. By mid-afternoon, the human envoy had arrived. His starship docked with precision, and he was escorted through the palace corridors under strict supervision. The princess watched from above as he entered the grand hall. He moved with a calm confidence, his eyes wide with curiosity. He noticed the architecture, the alien design, the sheer scale of the station. There was no fear, only fascination. She felt an unexpected warmth at seeing his expression. He was human, yet he carried an openness and intelligence that reminded her of the stories she had read. When they were finally introduced, the princess studied him carefully. His handshake was firm but respectful, his words polite but thoughtful. He spoke of his world, of its challenges and achievements, of the humans' desire to learn and understand. She listened, her curiosity growing with every sentence. He did not see her as a prize or a duty. He saw her as a person, as a mind capable of thought and insight. The realization struck her with quiet force. Perhaps this union could be different from what she had feared. After the formal introductions, the princess took the envoy on a tour of the palace. They walked through halls filled with art and technology, the human asking questions that revealed his sharp mind and genuine interest. He was not content to simply observe. He wanted to understand. She found herself answering freely, sharing insights and histories that she had never spoken aloud. In turn, he shared stories of human accomplishments and challenges, of worlds struggling and thriving. The conversation flowed naturally, a rare and precious moment where diplomacy and personal connection merged. As evening approached, the princess and the envoy stood on the balcony, overlooking the city once more. The lights reflected on the transparent surfaces, creating a scene of breathtaking beauty. The anomalies from earlier were still present, faint ripples in the city's energy, but now they seemed less threatening. Together, they speculated on the causes, discussing theories and possibilities. Their collaboration sparked a new sense of hope in the princess. Perhaps she did not have to face her duty alone. Perhaps with understanding and intelligence, she could shape the union in a way that benefited both worlds. Night fell, casting the city in soft shades of blue and silver. The princess remained on the balcony longer than usual, the human envoy beside her. She realized that her perspective was changing. The union, once a source of anxiety and resentment, now felt like an opportunity to learn, to teach, and perhaps even to form a connection that transcended politics. She was not powerless, she was capable. And with him, she might discover the freedom to make her own choices while still honoring her responsibilities. In the quiet of the night, the princess felt a stirring of determination. She would not allow the union to define her entirely. She would approach it with intelligence, curiosity, and care. She would observe, learn, and act when necessary. And most importantly, she would not be alone. The human envoy had already shown that he could see her as more than a pawn. That realization brought a rare smile to her face, small but genuine. As she finally turned to leave the balcony, the princess caught one last glimpse of the city below. The lights sparkled like stars scattered across the surface of the station. The anomalies continued to flicker faintly, reminders that the world was never entirely predictable. Yet, for the first time, she felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The union was no longer a sentence imposed upon her. It was a beginning, a chance to bridge worlds, to learn and to grow. Her mother's expectations remained vast and imposing, but the princess understood that she had her own mind, her own perspective, and her own potential. The path before her was uncertain, filled with challenges and discoveries, but she was no longer simply a participant in her mother's plans. She was an agent of her own destiny, a mind capable of shaping the future. And with the human envoy at her side, she felt a cautious but undeniable hope that together, they could create something extraordinary. As the night deepened and the stars of distant systems glimmered beyond the station, the princess made a quiet promise to herself. She would embrace this new chapter with courage, wisdom, and an open heart. The city slept below, unaware of the small but significant shift occurring within the palace walls. And high above, the princess prepared to step into a future that was hers to define, where duty and desire could coexist, and where understanding and connection could transcend the boundaries of species. The night ended, not with fear or resignation, but with a sense of anticipation. The princess had taken the first step in turning what seemed like a forced path into a journey of discovery. And in that quiet moment, she felt the stirrings of freedom, not the freedom of rebellion, but the freedom of choice, of thought, and of possibility. The galaxy was vast, filled with unknown wonders and challenges, but for the first time she felt ready to meet them, not as a pawn of the alien queen, but as herself. a princess with vision, courage, and the quiet determination to shape her own destiny. The next morning, the princess woke early, her mind still buzzing with thoughts from the previous day. She moved quietly through the palace corridors, careful not to wake the servants, her thoughts on the human envoy who had already changed so much of her perspective. There was a new curiosity in her steps, a desire to see the world outside the palace walls, even in small ways. She wanted to know more about humans, their way of thinking, their cleverness, and their courage. The union that once felt like a burden now seemed like a doorway to understanding a broader universe. Breakfast was served in the grand hall, a room filled with soft light that filtered through the massive windows overlooking the city. The human envoy was already there, examining the table and the arrangement of foods with interest. He looked up when he saw her, offering a small smile that was both polite and warm. "Good morning," he said, his voice calm and even, yet carrying an unmistakable friendliness. The princess nodded in return, feeling a flicker of ease she had not expected. They spoke quietly as they ate, discussing the simple things, the weather near his world, the movement of stars, the differences between their planets. He spoke with genuine curiosity, never condescending, never assuming he already knew the answers. She found herself relaxing, her laughter coming more easily than it had in months. He listened attentively to her, asking questions about her life, the station, and the alien culture she had grown up in. Each answer she gave felt like a bridge being built between their worlds. After breakfast, the princess invited the human envoy to explore the palace with her, showing him halls and chambers that few others ever entered. She led him to a vast room filled with holographic maps, detailing star systems, trade routes, and exploration records. She explained the patterns and technology, describing the complex systems her people used to maintain order and communication across their territory. He listened intently, occasionally asking questions or pointing out patterns that had escaped her notice. The conversation was lively and filled with laughter, an exchange of minds rather than a mere formal tour. As they walked, the princess felt a sense of freedom she had not experienced in a long time. The human's presence was not demanding, and his respect for her knowledge and opinion was apparent. She realized that she could speak openly here without fear of judgment or expectation. His perspective was refreshing, his mind different from the careful, rigid thinking of her court advisors. She felt a new sense of possibility, imagining what she could accomplish if she could continue to learn and think this way. Later, they reached the palace observatory, a circular room with a transparent dome that offered a full view of the city and the stars beyond. The envoy pointed out constellations from his home world, and the princess compared them with those she knew. Their conversation shifted to science and exploration, strategies for managing resources, and even the way societies could cooperate despite differences. She found his insights inspiring, and he seemed equally fascinated by her ideas. Together, they began to weave a tapestry of understanding, combining human ingenuity and alien knowledge. While they were discussing, the princess noticed a small irregularity in the observatory's systems, a faint flicker on the dome's monitoring panels. Her brow furrowed. "That's unusual," she said, pointing to the readout. The envoy leaned closer, examining it. "Could it be a malfunction?" he asked. She shook her head. "Perhaps, but it might be more. I've noticed small irregularities across the station lately. They seem minor, but they do not match typical patterns." Together, they began to investigate, following a trail of anomalies that led them through corridors and maintenance areas rarely visited by others. As they moved, the princess felt a thrill of discovery. For the first time, she was not merely observing the world as her mother commanded. She was exploring it, analyzing it, making decisions. The envoy's presence made the exploration even more stimulating. He asked questions she had not considered and offered suggestions that complemented her knowledge. Their teamwork was seamless, a partnership built on respect and shared curiosity. The anomalies eventually led them to a series of energy conduits beneath the palace. She knelt to examine them, noting subtle patterns of interference. The envoy offered a simple tool from his pocket, a human device designed to measure energy flow. Together, they traced the irregularity to a minor accidental disruption in the system, nothing dangerous but enough to spark their interest. The princess smiled, impressed by his practical approach. "You are clever," she said. He laughed softly. "And you are wise beyond your years," he replied. The warmth of the exchange lingered as they returned to the surface. Back in the palace, the princess could not ignore the growing bond between them. She realized that she was beginning to trust him, to value his judgment, and even to enjoy his company in a way that went beyond formal diplomacy. He made her feel understood, and in his presence, her thoughts and ideas seemed to expand rather than shrink. She thought about her mother's plans, about the union that had once felt like confinement. Now, it seemed possible that this union could be a partnership, one where both could learn and grow together. The human envoy, for his part, was equally intrigued by the princess. He admired her intelligence, her curiosity, and her ability to think beyond the confines of tradition. He noticed how carefully she observed the world, how she questioned patterns and explored possibilities. She was unlike anyone he had met before, both regal and approachable, capable of insight and creativity. He felt a quiet excitement at the thought of working alongside her, of uncovering the mysteries of the station and its people together. As evening approached, the princess decided to show him one of her favorite places, the palace gardens. Though artificial, the gardens were designed to emulate the wild beauty of distant planets, with flowing streams, soft light, and plants that glowed gently in the twilight. They walked along winding paths, the air filled with the fragrance of alien flowers. She explained the history of each plant and its cultural significance, and he listened, fascinated by the connection between nature and society in her world. In the heart of the garden, they paused by a pool reflecting the soft glow of the city lights above. The princess traced her fingers across the water's surface, creating ripples that distorted the reflection of the stars. The envoy knelt beside her, observing the patterns. "It's beautiful," he said quietly. She nodded, smiling. "It reminds me that even in a world of rules and order, there is room for wonder." He glanced at her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "And perhaps that wonder can guide the way forward." Their conversation turned to broader matters, the future of their worlds, the potential for cooperation, and the importance of understanding each other's perspectives. They discussed the possibility of forming alliances based not on obligation or strategy alone, but on trust and shared goals. The princess felt her excitement growing. She realized that this human envoy could be more than a representative of another civilization. He could be a partner in shaping a future that combined the strengths of both species. As night deepened, the princess escorted him back to his quarters. The corridors were quiet, the hum of the station the only sound. She felt a strange sense of peace, a sense that the world was larger and more intricate than she had ever imagined. The human envoy had opened her mind to possibilities she had never considered, showing her that curiosity and intelligence could overcome fear and expectation. Before parting, the envoy turned to her and said, "I hope we can continue exploring together, Princess. There is much to learn, and I feel we can teach each other more than anyone else could." She nodded, her smile soft but confident. "I would like that," she replied. The words felt natural, sincere, and filled with promise. For the first time, she felt that the union imposed upon her might not be a constraint, but an opportunity, a chance to build understanding, friendship, and perhaps something more. Returning to her private chambers, the princess reflected on the day's events. She thought about the anomalies they had discovered, the exploration they had undertaken, and the conversations that had deepened her understanding of both humans and herself. She realized that she was no longer the same person who had stood anxiously on the balcony the previous morning. She had begun to see the union in a new light, one that included agency, partnership, and hope. The night was quiet, yet her thoughts were alive with possibilities. She considered the challenges ahead, the expectations of her mother, the pressures of diplomacy, the unknowns of interacting with another species. Yet she also felt a growing confidence. She had discovered her own ability to observe, to think, and to act. With the human envoy at her side, she felt that even the most complex challenges could be approached with intelligence, creativity, and collaboration. As she drifted to sleep, the princess dreamed of stars and distant worlds, of alliances built on trust and understanding, and of the adventures yet to come. She felt a quiet determination to face each day with curiosity and courage, to explore the unknown, and to shape her destiny not as a passive participant, but as an active, intelligent mind capable of great influence. The human envoy's presence lingered in her thoughts like a guiding light, a reminder that even in a world bound by rules and expectations, there was room for discovery, growth, and connection. The Union was no longer a burden. It was a path, one she could walk with purpose and insight. And in the vast, shimmering expanse of the city and the stars beyond, the princess felt the first stirrings of a future she could truly call her own. The morning sun glimmered through the palace windows, casting long streaks of light across the polished floors. The princess stood near one of the large panels that displayed the city below, her eyes tracing the flow of vehicles, people, and drones. The small anomalies from previous days had not disappeared, and her curiosity about them had only grown. Today, she had decided to investigate more deeply. She could feel the subtle tension in the city, and although nothing dangerous had appeared, she knew that minor irregularities often pointed to something larger. The human envoy arrived soon after, his presence bringing a sense of energy to the otherwise quiet palace corridors. He had spent the night reviewing data from his ship, analyzing the patterns and systems he had observed. His methodical approach fascinated the princess. Unlike many of her advisors, he did not rush to conclusions or rely solely on theory. He looked at the evidence, asked thoughtful questions, and proposed solutions that she had never considered. Together, they were not just exploring the station. They were learning from each other, growing in understanding with every discussion. As they moved through the palace toward the lower levels, they paused at the observation deck. From here, they could see not only the city, but also the intricate network of energy conduits that powered the station. The envoy studied the lines with quiet intensity, pointing out connections and flows that seemed invisible to most. "The anomalies you noticed," he said. "They're subtle, but they follow a pattern. Almost as if someone is testing the system without causing harm. Yet," the princess nodded thoughtfully. His attention to detail reminded her of why humans were respected by so many civilizations, despite their relatively small numbers in the galaxy. They descended further into the maintenance corridors, narrow paths usually reserved for engineers and technicians. The princess felt a thrill as she led the way, her fingers brushing against the smooth walls. She realized that this was the first time she had explored these areas without supervision or the constraints of ceremony. Here, the rules that governed her life seemed less pressing, and her mind was free to think and question. The envoy walked beside her, occasionally pointing out junctions or sensors that might explain the irregularities. His calm, analytical presence was comforting, as if together they could untangle any mystery the station held. After a careful search, they discovered a small junction in one of the energy conduits where the readings were fluctuating more than expected. The princess knelt, studying the panels, and the envoy handed her a small device that measured energy flow in a way her own sensors could not. They compared readings, discussed possibilities, and gradually pieced together the source of the irregularity. It was minor, likely caused by a maintenance drone running an unusual diagnostic, but the process revealed something far more interesting. Someone had accessed the system without proper authorization, leaving subtle traces behind. The princess's eyes widened as she considered the implications. "This is not an accident," she said softly. "Someone is moving through the station, testing our systems." The envoy nodded, his expression serious but calm. "Perhaps it's not meant to be harmful yet. But it does show intent. Whoever it is wants to see what the station can do, what it cannot do." Together, they began mapping the traces, creating a profile of the movements and methods of this mysterious visitor. Each new piece of data brought them closer to understanding, but it also hinted at a larger puzzle, one that might affect not only the palace but the city itself. As the day progressed, the princess and the envoy continued their exploration, moving from one hidden passage to another. They shared observations, compared theories, and laughed at the quirks they discovered in the station's infrastructure. In these quiet, unguarded moments, a deep trust formed between them. She realized that she could rely on his judgment, and he realized that her insights were sharper and more nuanced than many humans could grasp. Together, they were forming a partnership built not on politics or duty, but on respect and intelligence. Later, they returned to the Central Archives, a place filled with holographic records and historical documents. The princess accessed data about previous unions and alliances between aliens and humans, noting patterns and lessons learned. She shared her observations with the envoy, who listened carefully, offering his perspective on human responses and behaviors in similar situations. They debated, discussed, and refined their understanding, each conversation bringing new clarity and insight. She felt exhilarated, the sense of shared purpose strengthening her confidence. While examining the archives, the princess noticed a section that had been recently accessed by someone other than herself or the authorized personnel. She frowned, intrigued. The records showed minor discrepancies in trade logs and energy allocations, subtle changes that would go unnoticed by most. This could be connected, she said. The envoy leaned closer, analyzing the data. It seems intentional. Someone is probing not just the station, but perhaps the political structure as well. The princess nodded, feeling a mixture of caution and excitement. There was a mystery unfolding, and she was determined to uncover it. The princess and the envoy decided to split their focus. While the envoy continued analyzing patterns from his ship systems, the princess would observe the station's activity in person. She moved through the city under the guise of routine inspection, noting subtle irregularities in behavior, energy usage, and communication channels. She saw merchants taking slightly altered routes, drones pausing unexpectedly, and minor shifts in traffic patterns. Each observation added to her growing understanding of the station's hidden dynamics. As they reconvened later, the princess shared her findings with the envoy. They compared notes, discussing possible motives and potential outcomes. "If this continues," she said, "it could disrupt more than just energy flow. It might affect trade, communication, and trust between citizens." The envoy nodded thoughtfully. "We can prevent that," he said calmly. "Not with force, but by understanding the system better than anyone who tries to manipulate it." His confidence inspired her, reinforcing her belief that intelligence and collaboration were more powerful than fear or control. The princess felt a sense of pride as they worked together. She realized that her role as a future leader was not simply to obey or follow orders. She could observe, analyze, and act, using knowledge and strategy rather than intimidation. The envoy's presence had opened a new perspective for her, showing her that diplomacy, understanding, and creativity could achieve more than strict authority ever could. She felt empowered in a way she had never known before. As evening approached, they returned to the palace gardens, a place of calm beauty where the artificial streams and glowing plants created a peaceful atmosphere. The princess paused by one of the reflective pools, tracing patterns on the water's surface. The envoy knelt beside her, examining the ripples and the reflections of the stars above. "Sometimes the smallest disturbances reveal the largest truths," he said quietly. She nodded, understanding his meaning on many levels. They had discovered minor irregularities that hinted at deeper challenges, and together they were uncovering truths that others had missed. In the quiet of the garden, their conversation turned to philosophy, ethics, and the responsibilities of leadership. The princess shared her thoughts on duty, choice, and the balance between tradition and innovation. The envoy listened carefully, offering perspectives from his own world, sharing lessons humans had learned from cooperation and exploration. Their discussion was thoughtful and engaging, a meeting of minds rather than a negotiation of power. The princess felt her understanding of leadership evolving, informed not only by her heritage, but by the insights of another intelligent mind. As the night deepened, the princess realized how much she had grown in just a few days. She had learned to observe more closely, think more critically, and act more confidently. She had discovered the value of collaboration and the importance of trust. And most importantly, she had begun to see that the union imposed upon her need not be a constraint, but could be a partnership, one where knowledge, respect, and mutual understanding formed the foundation. Returning to her chambers, she reflected on the day's discoveries and the bond that had strengthened between her and the envoy. She felt a quiet sense of determination and optimism. The anomalies they had discovered were minor, but they revealed the potential for insight, collaboration, and problem-solving. She realized that by embracing her curiosity and intelligence, she could influence outcomes in ways she had never imagined. As she prepared for sleep, the princess considered the challenges ahead. The station, the city, and the political structure were full of complexities, yet she no longer felt overwhelmed. She had allies, she had knowledge, and she had the ability to act with reason and creativity. The human envoy had shown her that even in a world governed by rules, patterns, and tradition, There was room for exploration, insight, and connection. The night passed quietly, filled with dreams of discovery and partnership. The princess awoke with a renewed sense of purpose, ready to face the mysteries of the station and the challenges of the Union with a clear mind and a courageous heart. She knew that the days ahead would be filled with questions, discoveries, and decisions, but she felt confident that she could navigate them with intelligence and grace. In the early morning light, she met the envoy once again, ready to continue their exploration and investigation. Together, they would uncover the subtle secrets of the station, strengthen the understanding between their peoples, and learn from each other in ways that neither could have imagined alone. The princess felt a quiet exhilaration, knowing that her choices, her curiosity, and her intelligence would shape not only her future, but the future of her world and the humans she had begun to understand so well. As they stepped into the corridors once more, the city hummed with life beneath them, oblivious to the discoveries and strategies unfolding in its hidden passages. Yet the princess understood that the smallest observations could change the largest outcomes. And with the human envoy at her side, she felt ready to uncover every secret, solve every puzzle, and step boldly into a future where cooperation, knowledge, and understanding would guide the way. The station was vast, full of mysteries and hidden patterns, yet the princess felt confident. Together, they would continue to observe, learn, and act. They were no longer merely participants in a political arrangement. They were explorers, investigators, and partners. And as the stars glimmered beyond the station's walls, the princess felt the thrill of discovery, the joy of connection, and the quiet power of knowledge guiding her forward. The day began with a soft hum across the palace, the city beneath glowing gently in the light of a distant sun. The princess walked through the corridors, her thoughts focused on the anomalies they had been tracking for days. Something about the irregularities no longer felt random. She sensed an intention behind them, subtle but deliberate. The patterns suggested that someone, or perhaps a small group, was testing the boundaries of the station, learning what they could without drawing attention. The human envoy met her at the entrance to the lower chambers, carrying a small device from his ship that could detect fluctuations in energy and communication networks. He smiled as he approached. "I think today we might get closer to answers," he said. The princess nodded, feeling a thrill of anticipation. She had learned to trust his instincts and reasoning. Together, they were not only observing the station, they were beginning to understand it on a level that few others could. They descended into the maintenance corridors again, moving quietly and efficiently. The envoy's device scanned the conduits, and the princess followed the readouts closely, noting subtle deviations from normal patterns. It was painstaking work, requiring patience and careful attention, but both found it exhilarating. Each discovery, however small, felt like a piece of a larger puzzle. They began tracing the disturbances back through layers of the station's infrastructure, uncovering the routes someone had taken to avoid detection. After hours of careful observation, they discovered something unusual, a hidden maintenance chamber that had been accessed recently without official authorization. The panels and conduits within showed traces of minor adjustments, not harmful but deliberate. The princess knelt to examine them, her mind analyzing each line, each flicker of energy. "This is clever," she said quietly. "Whoever did this understands the system deeply. They're testing boundaries, learning how it responds." The envoy crouched beside her, studying the patterns. "It seems they are not here to damage anything," he said, "but they are preparing, learning, and observing. That could have consequences if they are allowed to continue undetected." The princess nodded, her mind already forming strategies. She did not want to confront this intruder with force. That was not her style, nor the way she had learned to solve problems. Instead, she wanted to understand, to anticipate, and to outthink whoever had dared to probe the station's hidden networks. They continued to investigate, moving from one maintenance corridor to another, mapping each anomaly and noting each irregularity. As they worked, the princess felt the deep satisfaction of collaboration. With the envoy, every observation became more meaningful, every conclusion more precise. They discussed possibilities, hypothesized motives, and explored solutions together. The experience strengthened not only their understanding of the station, but also their trust in each other's judgment. By mid-afternoon, the princess and the envoy had traced the anomalies to a small administrative section of the palace. It was a rarely used area, filled with archives and data banks. They discovered that certain records had been accessed, files that seemed unrelated at first glance, but which, when analyzed, revealed patterns of political maneuvering within the station. Some officials were curious, some cautious, and some perhaps ambitious, testing the stability of the systems and the responses of the palace leadership. The princess frowned, recognizing the subtle games of influence and power that had been at play long before her arrival. The envoy studied the data with interest. "It looks like someone is trying to see how the leadership responds," he said. "Not to harm, but to learn. They are probing the rules and boundaries, the reactions to small disturbances." She nodded, impressed by his observation. The activity could be dangerous if left unchecked, not because of violence, but because misunderstanding or miscommunication could create unnecessary tension among the citizens or officials. They decided to gather more information, observing discreetly and noting every detail of the intruders' activity. Over the next few hours, they identified a pattern. The intruders were careful, methodical, and deliberate. They accessed files that contained administrative procedures, energy distribution charts, and trade communications. Nothing was stolen or damaged, but the intruders were clearly gathering knowledge. The princess realized that intelligence without understanding could be misused, even unintentionally. She turned to the envoy, her mind racing. "We need to anticipate their next move," she said. "If we understand what they want and why they are doing this, we can guide them, or at least prevent mistakes that could affect the station." The envoy nodded, his expression thoughtful. "We can do that," he said, "not with force, but by using our understanding. Let's map every access point and predict the next likely steps. Knowledge is the best tool we have." Together, they worked systematically, analyzing the movements of the intruders and the potential impact of their actions. They created a detailed map of the accessed areas and cross-referenced it with patterns of energy usage, communication logs, and maintenance schedules. Each new connection brought them closer to understanding the intent behind the anomalies. They were detectives, strategists, and analysts all at once, their minds working in harmony. By evening, the princess felt a growing sense of accomplishment. They had not only identified the intruders, methods, but also gained insights into the weaknesses and strengths of the station's operations. She realized that this experience had taught her more about leadership, responsibility, and problem-solving than months of formal instruction could have provided. The envoy's presence had amplified her learning, providing perspective and methods she had not considered before. They took a brief pause in the gardens, sitting by one of the reflective pools as the light of the distant sun faded into soft twilight. The princess traced shapes on the water's surface, and the envoy watched quietly. "I am impressed," he said finally. "You think deeply and you see patterns others miss. This station is lucky to have your mind at work." She smiled softly, feeling both pride and humility. "It is easier to see clearly when you have someone to work with," she replied. "I could not have done this alone." The night brought a new clarity. The anomalies, while subtle, had revealed the existence of a group attempting to probe and understand the station's systems. Their intentions were not harmful, but without guidance, even curiosity could create problems. The princess realized that she and the envoy had an opportunity, not to punish or confront, but to guide, to mentor, and to ensure understanding and cooperation. The union, once seen as a political arrangement, now became a partnership in problem-solving and insight. As they returned to the palace corridors, the princess felt a renewed sense of purpose. She understood the value of observation, of careful analysis, and of anticipating challenges before they arose. The envoy's presence had shown her the strength of collaboration, and she felt more confident than ever in her ability to lead thoughtfully and wisely. Together, they were capable of resolving mysteries, guiding others, and protecting the integrity of the station without relying on fear or authority. In her chambers that night, the princess reviewed the day's findings, noting the movements, patterns, and subtle intentions of the intruders. She realized that the experience had prepared her for leadership in a way she had never expected. She had learned to think critically, act decisively, and work in partnership with someone from a completely different world. The human envoy had become more than a representative of his people. He was a trusted ally, a collaborator, and a source of insight that complemented her own intelligence. The night was quiet, but her mind was active. She considered the possibilities for guiding the intruders, shaping their curiosity into something constructive, and ensuring the stability of the palace and city. She thought about the union, about her mother's expectations, and about the potential for cooperation between species. She realized that intelligence, respect, and guidance could achieve more than strict rules or hierarchy. The experiences of the day had shown her the power of collaboration and understanding, lessons that would stay with her far longer than the rules of the court. As she drifted toward sleep, the princess felt a quiet satisfaction. She had faced challenges not with force or confrontation, but with thought, observation, and partnership. She had discovered the potential for influence and leadership, not by following orders blindly, but by applying intelligence, strategy, and care. The human envoy's presence had been instrumental, and she felt grateful for his guidance, insight, and companionship. The stars outside her window glimmered, distant and steady, reminding her of the vastness of the universe and the possibilities it held. She understood that the station, the city, and even her mother's plans were only small pieces of a larger picture. The ability to see clearly, think critically, and act wisely would allow her to navigate challenges, shape outcomes, and build connections that could benefit both her people and the humans she had begun to understand. The princess closed her eyes, her mind filled with strategies, observations, and possibilities. She felt ready to guide, to mentor, and to act, not with force but with intelligence and understanding. The station was a living system, full of subtle patterns and hidden opportunities, and she was now able to perceive and respond to them with clarity. She understood that leadership was not about control alone. It was about observation, guidance, and the ability to bring out the best in others. When dawn arrived, the princess awoke with a renewed sense of energy. The anomalies would continue, as curiosity and exploration could not be fully restrained, but she now felt confident in her ability to anticipate and respond. With the human envoy by her side, she would continue their work, uncovering mysteries, guiding actions, and strengthening connections. The union, once a source of anxiety, now appeared as a pathway to understanding, insight, and cooperation, a partnership built not on obligation, but on mutual respect and intelligence. As she met the envoy in the corridors, their expressions mirrored each other's quiet determination. Together, they would continue to explore, analyze, and guide. They had learned that subtlety, observation, and collaboration could achieve what force could not. And in that shared understanding, the princess felt a profound sense of hope, purpose, and readiness for whatever challenges the days ahead might bring. The station hummed quietly beneath them, alive with energy and possibility. The princess and the envoy moved through its corridors, minds working together, eyes observing, hearts steady. They were ready to face the unknown, to guide the curious, and to build a future where understanding, intelligence, and cooperation would shape the outcomes of their world and beyond. And in that shared journey, the princess felt the quiet thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of insight, and the growing power of partnership that could change not only her fate but the future of many. The morning light bathed the palace in soft gold, reflecting off the spires and glass domes that rose across the city below. The princess stood in her chambers, reviewing the notes and patterns she and the human envoy had gathered over the past days. The anomalies in the station had been mapped, understood, and now, guided, they no longer posed a threat. But more than that, they had become a lesson, an opportunity to demonstrate the power of intelligence, observation, and collaboration. The princess felt a quiet sense of pride. She dressed quickly, choosing practical attire for the day's work, knowing the queen would want to meet with her later. Unlike before, she felt calm rather than anxious. She had grown in confidence over the days of observation and exploration. She had learned that leadership was not about fear or obedience, but about understanding systems, guiding others, and making thoughtful decisions. She had also learned the importance of connection, of trust, and of seeing value in others' perspectives. The human envoy was waiting in the hall, his own expression calm and purposeful. He had spent the night reviewing the data they had collected, thinking through the implications of every pattern. He looked up as she approached and offered a warm smile. "Good morning," he said. "Are you ready to meet your mother today?" The princess nodded, her mind already focused on the conversation ahead. "I am," she replied, "and I believe I am ready to speak with clarity and confidence." They walked together through the palace corridors, the hum of the station beneath their feet a constant reminder of the life and energy flowing through the city. The envoy stayed by her side, a silent reassurance, offering support without taking control. The princess appreciated this balance. She did not need someone to lead her, she needed someone who could think alongside her, and that was exactly what he did. When they entered the queen's chambers, the room seemed larger than ever, filled with light and the subtle glow of energy panels along the walls. The queen herself stood at the far end, regal and commanding as always, but with a faint flicker of curiosity in her eyes. She observed the princess carefully, noting the changes in posture, expression, and demeanor. The princess, for her part, met her mother's gaze without fear. She had learned over the past days that knowledge and clarity were as powerful as any command. "My daughter," the queen began, her voice firm but not unkind, "I have heard of your activities. You have spent time with the human envoy and investigated these anomalies yourself. Explain to me what you have learned." The princess took a deep breath, recalling every observation, every pattern, and every insight gained from her investigations. "Mother," she said, her voice steady, "I have learned that observation, understanding, and collaboration can resolve challenges more effectively than strict orders alone. The anomalies in the station were minor, but they revealed subtle intentions that could have caused confusion. By analyzing them carefully, the envoy and I were able to guide the station safely, prevent misunderstandings, and learn lessons about how to manage systems and people." The queen's expression softened slightly, her eyes narrowing in thought. "And you did this with a human?" she asked, her tone holding both surprise and a faint admiration. The princess nodded. "Yes, he is not just a guest or a diplomat. He brings insight, perspective, and creativity. Working with him has shown me that collaboration, respect, and understanding can strengthen leadership, not weaken it." The queen studied her daughter for a long moment, a silence stretching across the room that felt heavier than any words. Finally, she spoke. "You have learned well, my daughter. You have shown initiative, wisdom, and the ability to guide without force. That is rare. Tell me, what do you wish for the union with this human?" The princess met her mother's gaze, thinking carefully. "I wish for a partnership," she said. "Not one based solely on duty, but on mutual respect, trust, and the ability to work together. I want the union to be a connection that benefits both our people, not a constraint that limits my choices." The queen considered this, her face unreadable. After a long pause, she nodded slowly. "I see. You have grown and your understanding surpasses what I expected. Very well. The union will proceed, but on terms that reflect your agency and judgment. You will lead the partnership, and the envoy will act as an equal, contributing ideas and insight. This will be a union of minds, not merely titles." The princess felt a surge of relief and pride. She bowed slightly, acknowledging her mother's decision. "Thank you, Mother. I will honor this trust and ensure it strengthens both our civilizations." The queen smiled faintly, the first warmth she had shown in many days. "I believe you will," she said. "You are ready for responsibility, ready to guide and to lead, and you are wise enough to choose companions who share your vision." After the meeting, the princess and the envoy walked back to the observatory together. The city stretched below, calm and vibrant in the morning light. The princess felt a renewed sense of purpose. The union was no longer a burden imposed upon her. It was a chance to create something meaningful, to combine the strengths of humans and aliens, and to shape a future guided by intelligence, respect, and understanding. In the observatory, they reviewed the final data from the anomalies, discussing lessons learned and potential improvements for the station. They talked about ways to strengthen communication channels, improve monitoring systems, and foster trust among the citizens. The princess realized that even minor observations could lead to significant changes if addressed thoughtfully. And with the envoy's help, she felt confident that the systems could be managed efficiently, fairly, and wisely. As they worked, their conversation drifted to broader ideas: exploration, diplomacy, and the future of interstellar relations. The princess shared her thoughts on fostering cooperation between civilizations, balancing tradition with innovation, and the importance of curiosity in leadership. The envoy listened attentively, offering perspectives from his world, suggesting solutions and challenging ideas in ways that encouraged her to think more deeply. Their exchange was no longer just about anomalies or investigation. It had become a meeting of minds, an intellectual partnership that inspired and challenged both of them. Later, they walked through the palace gardens, the soft glow of evening illuminating the artificial streams and glowing flora. The princess paused by the central pool, tracing gentle patterns across its surface. The envoy knelt beside her, observing her movements. "You have changed," he said softly. "Not just in confidence, but in clarity. You understand not only the station, but yourself, your people, and the challenges ahead." She smiled faintly, feeling the truth of his words. "I have learned that observation and thought can be as powerful as command," she replied. "And that partnership can create more than authority alone." They spent the evening in quiet conversation, discussing not only the station but the worlds beyond, the potential for alliances, and the ways humans and aliens could learn from each other. The princess felt a sense of connection she had never experienced before. The envoy respected her intelligence, valued her perspective, and shared his own knowledge without expectation. Together, they had discovered not only the mysteries of the station, but the strength of mutual respect and collaboration. As night fell, the city below shimmered with light, reflecting across the palace domes and towers. The princess looked out at the stars, feeling a sense of calm excitement. The union was no longer a mandate she resented. It was a partnership she could shape, a relationship built on intelligence, respect, and shared purpose. With the envoy at her side, she knew they could face any challenge, explore any mystery, and guide their worlds toward cooperation and understanding. In her chambers that night, the princess reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the first moments of fear and uncertainty, the exploration of hidden corridors, the analysis of anomalies, and the quiet moments of insight she had shared with the envoy. Each step had strengthened her mind, her confidence, and her understanding of leadership. She realized that intelligence, patience, and collaboration were as vital as courage and resolve in shaping a better future. The princess felt a quiet anticipation for the days ahead. She knew that challenges would arise, that questions would need answers, and that her choices would matter. But she also knew that she was no longer alone, that she had the guidance, insight, and companionship of someone who understood and respected her. Together, they could navigate the complexities of their worlds, fostering trust, learning from each other, and building connections that would endure beyond any one generation. The night passed with quiet satisfaction. The princess awoke early the next day, ready to meet the responsibilities and opportunities that awaited. She felt a sense of purpose, clarity, and calm determination. The station, the city, and the union were all parts of a larger journey, one that she would guide with intelligence, wisdom, and respect for others. The human envoy stood at her side, a partner in thought, action, and vision. Together, they were ready to face the unknown, explore new possibilities, and strengthen the bonds between their civilizations. As the sun rose, the princess looked out over the city, the distant stars, and the endless possibilities of space. She felt the quiet thrill of discovery, the satisfaction of insight, and the power of partnership. The union would proceed not as a mandate, but as a shared journey of growth, understanding, and collaboration. The princess had gained agency, wisdom, and confidence. She had learned that leadership was about guiding, observing, and inspiring, and that true power lay not in control alone, but in understanding, respect, and cooperation. Walking through the palace with the envoy beside her, she felt ready to face whatever challenges, discoveries, or adventures lay ahead. The galaxy was vast, full of mysteries and wonders, but she was prepared. She was not merely a daughter of the queen, bound by duty. She was a leader, a thinker, and a partner in shaping the future. The city hummed beneath them, alive with energy, opportunity, and promise. And high above, the stars waited, reflecting the limitless potential of those who approached life with intelligence, curiosity, and respect. The princess paused on a balcony overlooking the city, the human envoy at her side, and felt a quiet sense of triumph, not from victory, but from understanding. They had turned challenges into lessons, obstacles into opportunities, and a forced union into a partnership of trust and insight. The future stretched before her, filled with possibility, growth, and collaboration. And in that moment, she knew that together, they could shape a better, wiser, and more connected galaxy. As the stars glittered beyond the station, the princess took a deep breath, feeling ready to step into this new chapter. She had learned, she had grown, and she had found a partner who respected her mind, her choices, and her vision. The journey of the union was just beginning, but for the first time, she felt that the path ahead was not only manageable but full of promise. She was ready to guide, to explore, and to lead, not alone, but together with someone who understood the true power of partnership. And as the first light of dawn bathed the palace in warmth, the princess turned to the envoy, a gentle smile on her face. "The future is ours to shape," she said softly. He nodded, returning the smile. Together, they looked out at the city, the stars, and the endless expanse beyond, ready to face the days to come with intelligence, trust, and the quiet courage of those who choose to understand, guide, and create a better world.